Hello and welcome to Bud's RPG Review, where I give my thoughts on role-playing games, card games and board games. Today's review is the Masks of Nyarlathotep game of prop set by the H.P. Lovecraft Historical Society. First, before I begin, I would like to say thank you to one of my long-term patrons, Euclid Prime, for sending me this copy of the props, and I apologise that it has taken me so long to get to it. Okay, first a bit of history. Released in 2018, the Masks of Nyarlathotep game of prop set is a big box collection of realistic props from Masks of Nyarlathotep 7th edition. However, with a bit of curating, it could be used easily with any other pre-7th edition version. The box actually has 138 usable items. The collection went on to win the Gold Ennie in 2019 for the best non-digital aid or accessory and also Product of the Year. The lovely sturdy cardboard box contains a multitude of delights that cover every chapter, including the new Peru one, as well as some extra bonus items produced by the designers to fill in some gaps or flesh some things out that they feel could use a little help. Let's take a look inside. Needless to say, there will be heavy spoilers ahead, so stop watching now if you intend to play this. The first thing we have is the user guide, with a complete list of each component as well as which chapter they are found in. Next we have this, a replica of an Edaphone wax cylinder case which contains a USB pen drive. The drive itself has been done with a wood style effect and contains all 8 transcripts from the scenario recorded by professional actors in MP3 format. This includes the Will of Jackson Elias, Professor Cowles' lecture, the Reverend statement, Warren Bassart's statement, Sergeant Bumption's statement, Old Bundari's statement, Jeremy Grogan's statement, and finally Jack Brady's statement. The next thing you might notice is this Chinese scroll. Since this box arrived, the H.P. Lovecraft Historical Society has actually used a different supplier, and there is a newly designed scroll which is meant to be more historically accurate than the original, though clearly there's nothing wrong with this one. It actually has the Rite of the Order of the Bloated Woman written in Mandarin. We have a matchbox from the Stumbling Tiger Bar in Shanghai, which contains real matches. In the scenario, it is actually a book of matches, but it was decided that a box of matches was much more in keeping with the period. There are 6 Nansen passports. These were issued by the League of Nations from 1922 to 1938 in response to the post-World War I refugee crisis that left many people stateless. They could theoretically be used by anyone, and 6 are included for the globe-trotting investigators to use. There are 6 US passport stamps, 6 British Consular Service stamps, and 6 Western Australia stamps that are to be affixed to the passports. We have a collection of passport stamp stickers. These would originally have been a rubber stamp, but in lieu of actually providing an entire set of stamps plus ink, these are used instead. They include entrance and exit stamps, as well as cancelled, deported, expelled and revoked. The last of the loose items in the box is this. A 1923 accurate map of the world. It has been edited to include some places that were not on the original. Okay, so after that we move on to the chapter by chapter props themselves. Each chapter is contained in its own folder, stamped with the chapter it is for. To make it easy on myself, I will be going through them in the order that I've recorded the videos in my review in. So let's start with Peru. Firstly, we have a newspaper clipping. Something to note about all of the clippings in this set is that they are all printed on actual broadsheet newspaper, and the article in question is for the most part surrounded by images and stories from the actual period. Next is the Larkin telegram, which is based on an original vintage telegram from Argentina. There is Trinidad Rizzo's notes, which look like they were actually ripped from a spiral bound notepad. And we have a map of Peru from 1913 that doesn't match the one provided in the campaign, but should the players want to pick up a map from somewhere, this is one they can acquire. None of the keeper information is on it. Lastly, we have the route map and the ruins map from the campaign. Essentially, anything that has the Chaosium logo on the right is used under license. After this, we have the largest folder in the set, America. We have two What You Know About Your Friend Jackson Elias handouts that cover if the Peru chapter has been done or not. We then have an absolute mound of newspaper clippings of various sizes, and Edward Gavigan's Penhew Foundation business card done with a linen finish. There is the handwritten letter from Warren Bessart, which is slightly crumpled by design as it's travelled with Jackson Elias around the world. And Jackson Elias's telegram, which is a replica of a real one from the Postal Telegraph Company that was a competitor to Western Union in the 1920s. The next thing is a photograph of the murdered Jackson Elias, which has been staged in a similar way to how the NYPD did them back in the day. This is followed by a new prop, a letter by Jackson Elias. The thinking behind this was to provide more clues for the investigators, and it is written on letterheaded hotel paper from a fictional hotel. It's also worth mentioning that the handwriting is based on H.P. Lovecraft's. We then have the handbill from Professor Anthony Cowles' lecture printed on shiny paper. There's the Emerson Imports business card with Silas and Kwane's name on the back. There's the letter from Miriam Atray from Harvard University. Although the Harvard letterhead is fictional, post-paid envelope was common at the time. We have a large black and white photograph of the Dark Mistress. The designers noted that it isn't as blurry as the one described in the campaign, but because it's such a good picture they didn't have the heart to blur it, and also the boat itself is a composite, everything else is real. There is a page from Life as a God. As it was from a diary from 1810, it has been presented on aged period-style paper and is the crucial page that has been torn from the book. We have the Nairobi notes of Jackson Elias. This has been presented on Prospero House publishing paper and expanded upon to look into the workings of a publisher. The next item is Jackson Elias's final letter to Jonah Kensington. This has been printed on letterheaded paper from the last place Jackson stayed, the Hampton House Hotel in Nairobi. We have the final statement of Jackson Elias and notes from Professor Cowles' lecture. These are transcripts of the MP3 files. We have a bonus item of the desert ruins discovered by Arthur McWhirr, which is supposed to be a slide in Cowles' lecture. Next is a page from the Africa's Dark Sects book that is found in Juju House. It has been printed on book replica paper. There's a reprint of the map of Harlem from the campaign, and this is followed by another bonus item, the dust jacket from Jackson's The Hungry Dead book. This has been designed for you to actually put on one of your own books for a bit of fun. We have this stunning period map of New York, which is an edited replica of one published by Washington Square Bookshop in 1926, and it is designed to be given to the players as a reference point as it contains no keeper information. Next we have a pretty large item, Robert Houston's medical notes on Roger Carlyle. This has been expanded from the single page in the campaign to 21 pages of detailed notes which reveal as much about Houston as it does about Carlyle. I have left it sealed as I want my players to open it and have that experience. Lastly, we have the map of Juju House from the campaign. Okay, so now we move on to England. Firstly, we have the Reverend's account, which as per the other accounts is an MP3 on the pen drive, and this is a transcript of it. And this is followed by a load of reprints of various maps from the actual campaign. We also have another batch of newspaper clippings, which are followed by a truly magnificent detailed map of London, which is a replica of one from 1890. It was chosen by the designers as it shows the Limehouse Reach, and it has been browned along the edges to simulate being used. After this we have a bonus item, a Ferris & Sons lorry receipt. This can be found amongst the papers at Empire Spices or on Edward Gavigan's desk, and it has Zara Shafiq's signature on it. After that is the unfinished letter from Edward Gavigan to the Pale Viper, aka Sir Aubrey Penhew. We have a page from Gavigan's ledgers which contain a few more entries than the Chaosium version. Incidentally, Gavigan's handwriting is based on that of the American poet Sidney Lanier. There is an Empire Spices business card and a shipping label from Randolph Shipping in Darwin, Australia. It is actually a proper label that can be stuck to a shipping box if required. We have the receipt for the walk-in safe, and this is followed by the telegram from Dr. Clive, a replica of a real one from the period. There is the page about the Saqqara incident, which has been designed to look like it was torn from an academic journal, and the letter from Omar al-Shakti, which has a letterhead of metallic gold and is on Haviland blue linen finished paper, the mark of a proper villain. Finally, you have a bonus item, schematics of hybrid Yithian technology being developed by Henson Manufacturing. To be noted is the first glimpse of Sir Aubrey Penhue's handwriting and the fact that it is based on real German sketches of a theoretical uranium bomb. The next folder we have is Egypt. First up are a bundle of various newspaper clippings, some of which are bonus items, and this is followed by Sir Aubrey Penhue's note on receipt of the scarab. It is on his own personal notepaper, and those investigators who can read Egyptian hieroglyphics may notice that the cartouche at the top says Penhue, and they may even notice the little viper. Next is a photograph of a stone carving which should be the Eye of Light and Darkness. There is a 1920s replica map of Cairo that has no keeper information and can be given to the investigators. We then have a bonus item of a map of Warren Bassart's of the archaeological sites such as the Ben Pyramid and the Red Pyramid. It is actually an edited version of one by German Egyptologist Karl Lepsius that was published in the 1840s. Finally, we have Warren Bassart's statement transcript of the MP3 file and a map of the tunnels below Giza Plateau from the campaign. Moving on, we get to the Kenya folder. Again, there are a number of newspaper clippings, some of which are bonus pieces, covering the expedition being murdered, and then we shift to the map of Nairobi, which is based on a real 1950s one created by a British petroleum company. We have a page from the Hindi version of the Black Tome from 1517. This is a page that is torn from the book, with English annotation written perhaps by Tarn Kaur in the margin. There is a letter from Madame Lin Yen Yu that has been designed to show that she has nice personal stationery, and it carries her personal symbol of a flying swallow. Lastly, in the Kenya section, we have transcriptions of the statements from both Old Bundari and Sergeant Bumption, again available as MP3s, and copies of the maps from the actual campaign. Moving on, we get to Australia. The first thing we have is some pages from Arthur McQuare's diary with some extra entries added to fill the gaps. They've been designed to look like they've been torn from a diary. We then have the letter from Gavigan to Houston, which is of course on Gavigan's stationery. There is a bonus item which the designers discovered while performing their research, a 1920s brochure about travel to Australia that showed travel times from various places. There is a mimeographed memo from Houston to the acolyte of the Sambat. Also, we have an edited replica of a real map of Western Australia from 1923 that has some campaign-specific locations like the Canning Stock route incorporated into it. We have some pages of Houston's Gods of Reality manuscript. It is billed as being 600 pages long, but this is meant to be all of Chapter 11. Finally, in the Australia section, we have the statement of Jeremy Grogan and a number of maps and locations that have been reproduced from the campaign. Finally, we have the China folder. We have a number of newspaper clippings, and this is followed by another letter from Edward Gavigan. There is the prediction. This is written on Zazie paper rather than on a scroll like the scenario says. There's the translation of the 7 cryptical books of Hassan, which is torn from a notebook. And this is followed by a brief note written from Jack Brady to Chu Min, which has been done on rice paper so that it could be eaten after being read. We have the telegram from Robert Houston, which is not based on a real vintage Chinese telegram, but actually a movie prop from the 1940s. It has a 1920s stamp on it as a bonus. There's a large format map of Shanghai from 1919 that has Lantern Street and a number of X's added to it that are places of interest. There is a bonus item of a nautical chart of the East China Sea that shows Grey Dragon Island. This can be acquired from either Jack Brady or Chu Min. And lastly, we have selected diary entries from Sir Aubrey Penhew, Jack Brady's statement, and excerpts from the Order, which is a translation of what is on the scroll. What remains are reprints of various places from the campaign itself. The first question I know people will be asking in regard to this is simple. Is it worth the money? It currently stands at just over £100 or $139 plus delivery, which is not cheap when you consider you also have to buy masks too, which could be expensive if you go for the slipcase set. However, if this is a campaign that you plan to run face to face with your players, then I would have to say yes, it is worth the money. For people who only occasionally run it, then it probably offers less, though I do suspect that it will hold on to its value over time. What I find fascinating is the sheer amount of love and attention to detail that has been crammed into the box. The people who made it are clearly massive fans of the campaign and have elaborated in various ways, some small, some big, to flesh out and bring to life arguably the daddy of all campaigns. Kersim's handouts in the actual campaign are already really well done, but this takes them and elevates them far beyond expectations. The newspaper clippings look and feel 100% authentic. The pages torn from spiral-bound notepads really do look the part. The statements by various characters that the investigators meet along the way are all scripted and acted to perfection. I really didn't know what to expect when my patron sent this to me, but I have to admit, having finished my review of the campaign and now understanding what everything in here means, it is jaw-droppingly good. I've lost count of the amount of people who have said, I wish I had that, when I told them about it, and I feel incredibly lucky to have so generously received one, as I suspect it is something that I probably wouldn't have thought to buy. Incidentally, now I have it in hand, it has inspired me to run the campaign for my own home group, just so we get a chance to experience the props in play. Those people who are teetering on the edge of whether to buy this, and who watch this video, should have no doubt what I think of this. Any preconceptions I had were shattered and elevated far beyond what I could have expected. The whole thing is truly magnificent. A stone cold 10 out of 10. If you enjoyed this review, please make sure to hit the thumbs up, subscribe to my channel and check out my other videos. Also, if you're interested in buying this product, I'll put some links below. Lastly, if you like what I produce here, then maybe think about supporting me on Patreon or even becoming a member of my YouTube channel. Bud out.